Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 131 of your student journal. And our objective or our goal for today is, today I will discover equivalent fractions by using models. Okay, so our goal says we're going to discover, which means we're going to find equivalent. Equivalent just means equal in value. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll look the same, but it means that their value will be equal. And we're going to discover them by using models. So let's look at our vocabulary. Our first word says equivalent fractions, and it's different fractions that represent the same value. So we see 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. So even though the numbers look different, how much they're worth is the same. Then we see fraction, a numeric value that represents part of a whole or part of a group. And then we have the denominator. Remember, the denominators are bottom number, and it tells us the total number of equal parts in the whole. So how many was the whole partitioned into or cut into? It doesn't have numerator. Remember, numerators are top number, and it tells us how many of the parts we have. Then we have whole, which is an entire complete object or set. And then we have something called an unknown. This is a letter. Sometimes we call this a variable, also when you get a little bit older, but it's an unknown. So when we see that, they're going to have us solve for it and figure out what the unknown is. And you'll see that in my example. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Here is my first problem. And it says, partition the circle to find an equivalent fraction. Okay, and partition, remember, means I'm going to cut. So the first fraction says it's 1/2. So the 2 denominator tells me I need to cut it into 2 parts. And the 1 numerator tells me I have one of the parts. So this is what 1/2 looks like. Okay, if I want to make a fraction that's equal in value to that, equal in value, I'm going to start by also making this 1/2. And I'm going to shade it in so they're equal. But then what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this one again. So I can go in half again. So now my denominator is 1, 2, 3, 4 because I cut it into 4 parts. And my numerator is 1, 2 because I have 2 of the parts. I could have done it many different ways. I'm going to draw another one to show you. So I also could have start with cutting it in half and shade it. And remember, when I do circles, I always go through the center. So I could have cut this one in half this way. So now I have 4 parts, and then I could have done it more. So I could have cut this entire circle into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the pieces. So those are all equivalent fractions because the value or how much they have is all equal, but they look different. Okay, let's look at my second one. Construct models for the fractions, solve for the unknown equivalent fraction. Okay, so they said 1/3 equals x over 6. So I'm going to start by drawing this one. I'm going to use a rectangle this time. So the 3 tells me that I'm going to partition it into 3 parts, and the 1 tells me I have 1 of them. So this is what 1/3 looks like. Okay, but they want to know, what does it look like if it was partitioned into 6 instead? So I'm going to draw 1/3 again. And if I want to cut this into 6 parts, I can take each of these and partition them again. So now I have 6 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But how many do I have that's equal to this? I have 2. So x equals 2. I could have also just looked at this one and just cut these in half to make it 6. Okay, let's do some together, ladies and gentlemen. We're on page 132, and here is our first one. It says, partition the rectangles to find an equivalent fraction. Okay, so we're gonna first draw this. So the 3 means we're going to partition it into 3 parts. And the 2 means that we have 2 of the 3 parts. So we have 1, 2 of them. Okay, so let's do the same over here. Let's partition it into 3 parts. And let's shade 2 of them. So now we can decide how we want to cut this up. I think we should take each of these parts and cut them into 3 parts. So I'm going to put 2 lines in there. So I made that into 3. I'm going to put 2 lines in here and 2 lines in here. So how many parts did we partition it into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our denominator's 9. And how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our numerator is 6. So 2/3 is equivalent to 6/9. Their value is the same even though they look different. Okay, let's look at our second one. Construct models for the fractions. Solve for the unknown equivalent. Okay, so they kind of switched them from the one I did. The x was on this side, but it doesn't matter. So let's draw what we have. No, we know 2/4. So the 4 means let's partition it into 4ths. And the 2 means we have 2 of them. So we have 1, 2. So they want to know if we had only cut it instead of in 4 pieces, we only cut it in 2 pieces. That's what the 2 means. We only cut it into 2 pieces. How many pieces would we have that look like this? Well, wouldn't we just have this top part? Aren't those equivalent? So this is 2 out of the 4 pieces, and this is 1 out of the 2 pieces. So our x would equal 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you have the next couple pages to try on your own. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.